Okay, let's just cut right through the PR fluff and look at the raw, honestly slightly dangerous truth buried deep inside the Spacex S1 SEC filing ahead of their June 12th IPO. We are staring down a targeted $1.75 trillion valuation. I mean, that is literally the largest in financial history. But listen, if you think you know what SpaceX actually does, you are probably wrong. We've completely torn apart these financials, and in this explainer, we're going to expose the exact hidden mechanics of this deal. So let's kick things off with the single most shocking fact that absolutely nobody is leading with. It's just a number buried way down in the fine print. 1 million. Now, this isn't a revenue target. It's not a subscriber count. It's actually a completely bizarre, unprecedented condition tied directly to Elon Musk's compensation package. To unlock his restricted shares, Musk must literally build a Mars colony. I'm completely serious. The filing explicitly requires him to, quote, establish a permanent human colony on Mars with at least 1 million inhabitants. I mean, this SEC document reads way more like a sci-fi novel than a traditional financial statement. But it sets the exact tone for this entire IPO. Mars is the dream, sure, but as you're about to see, it is absolutely not the business model. We really need to tear down the biggest misconception out there right now. If you're sitting there thinking you are buying shares in a rocket company, you are dead wrong. Look, rockets are loud, they're highly visible, and they are basically the entire SpaceX brand. But the financial reality, it tells a completely different story. When you break down their $18.7 billion in total revenue projected for 2025, the vast majority actually comes from Starlink. Their connectivity division alone pulled in $11.4 billion. The space division, those famous rocket launches everyone watches, generated just $4.1 billion, and their integrated AI segment generated $3.2 billion. The rockets are quite literally just the delivery mechanism. They are not the main product. But the real story here, the one you need to pay attention to, is the profitability. This reveals exactly where the cash is burning. Space lost $657 million. AI, that is a massive cash incinerator, losing $6.4 billion as they build out compute infrastructure. Meanwhile, Starlink is the singular profit engine, generating $4.4 billion in operating income. Let that sink in. Starlink is carrying this entire $1.75 trillion company on its back. So, what's the crucial takeaway here? The rocket business is really just a massive loss leader for their actual endgame. When you buy into this IPO, you're investing in a highly profitable global internet provider that happens to be actively propping up a spectacularly expensive, cash-burning AI startup. And they need a ton of cash to fund all this, which leads us directly to exactly how they plan to get it. This brings us to a strategic move that should trigger a little bit of FOMO mixed with, honestly, a bit of betrayal regarding how everyday retail investors are being used. An IPO of this insane magnitude requires really careful price management, and SpaceX has engineered a highly specific, very intentional role for you. Check this out. A standard IPO usually allocates about 5 to 10% of its shares to retail investors. SpaceX, however, is offering a staggering 30% of their massive $75 billion raise to retail, locked in at a fixed $135 per share. Now, at first glance, that looks like a massive win for the little guy, right? But offering this much to retail isn't some generous gift. It's a highly calculated trap. As Reuters brilliantly pointed out, retail investors are far less likely to rush for the exits or engage in pop-and-dump trading. SpaceX knows that everyday investors, especially Musk's hardcore fan base, have absolute cult-like diamond hands. They buy, they hold, and they flat-out refuse to sell through the volatility. SpaceX is actively weaponizing that extreme loyalty to artificially stabilize the stock price. And their lockup schedule reveals exactly why they desperately need you to hold. Early insiders and venture capitalists face incredibly aggressive expirations. Just 70 days after the IPO, 7% of early investor shares unlock. At 90 days, another 10.5% unlocks. Within the first few quarters, up to 20% of insider shares could suddenly flood the market. They are going to cash out at this sky-high valuation, and they need your retail diamond hands to absorb the impact and keep the price propped up. Okay, let's move to the ultimate controversy here, the passive investor hijack that will undoubtedly have the comment section exploding today. You might be watching this thinking, you know what, the valuation is totally crazy, I'm just going to sit this one out. But what if you literally don't have a choice?
This is where the dark mechanics of modern investing completely work against you. NASDAQ is literally bending its own rules, slashing the normal 3-month cooling-off period for index inclusion down to just 15 days, specifically to entice Spacex to list with them. Once they list, passive ETFs that track the NASDAQ 100 are forced to buy the stock automatically. They completely ignore the price, they ignore the fundamentals, they just buy.
To put that into perspective, this means over $600 billion globally in passive ETFs, like the incredibly popular QQQ, will be forced to buy this stock completely on autopilot. Your 401k, your retirement account, your standard index funds, they will all blindly purchase shares at a $1.75 trillion valuation, whether you actually want to own a piece of this company or not. And despite all of this retail and passive ETF money flooding in to fund the whole operation, Elon Musk retains an ironclad 85.1% voting control thanks to a dual-class share structure. So as a public investor, you are entirely forfeiting your say. It's your money paying for it, but it is exclusively his rules. Now for the detail that feels like an absolute insider secret. It's a sci-fi level infrastructure plan buried so deep in these filings that 99% of people haven't even heard a whisper about it. Remember how AI is their massive cash incinerator right now? Well, they aren't just building normal data centers. They are actively preparing for a massive physical bottleneck right here on Earth. Earth literally cannot generate enough power or provide enough cooling for the future of artificial general intelligence. It's just not possible. So SpaceX plans to deploy gigawatt-scale AI data centers directly into space. They're calling it orbital AI compute. It will use the unlimited solar power of the sun and the freezing vacuum of space to run massive data centers in a sun-synchronous orbit. Sounds crazy, right? But to pull this off, they are vertically integrating absolutely everything. Through their TerraFab initiative, they are partnering up with Tesla and Intel to manufacture custom AI chips perfectly optimized for space. On top of that, they've locked down a massive agreement with Google Cloud for 110,000 H100 GPUs. And they are going to use the Starship rocket to physically transport these massive 100-ton AI payloads straight into orbit. They are quite literally building an orbital AI monopoly. Let's pull all of this together into one final, undeniable thesis for this explainer. Because when you strip away the flashy rocket launches and all those grand Mars colony dreams, you are left with the raw, brilliant financial machinery of this deal. This is the unfiltered truth behind the most hyped IPO in financial history. You aren't buying a rocket company. You're funding a multiplanetary AI monopoly. And passive investors are being forced to foot the bill. The rockets? They're just the delivery truck. Starlink is the cash register. AI is the actual product. And your passive index funds are the ultimate buyers of last resort. So the ultimate question is this. When that SPX ticker finally goes live on the NASDAQ on June 12th, will you be voluntarily buying in? Will you be forced in through your ETFs? Or are you sitting this one out completely? Drop your exact strategy in the comments below. And make sure you hit subscribe because I am going to be covering day one of this historic IPO live right here. Thanks for hanging out for this explainer, and I will see you guys on launch day.